Welcome to the Seeker's Quest, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being patient with our technical difficulties today. I'm here with Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, the spiritual scientist, and Vedaji, a wonderful teacher of mine and community builder. How are you guys? Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, is everything good over there? Is your service okay?
Yeah. Actually, somehow there was a issue with the Wi-Fi, and I was trying to connect to multiple channels. Apologies for the delay in joining.
Oh, no problem. Vedaji, how's your retreat going? You're in Connecticut right now?
Yes, I am. It was ecstatic. It's sold out retreat. Many people were bummed they couldn't come.
Oh, wow. That's great. What kind of retreat is it?
It's yoga based. So yesterday they had a booth that I had to sit, and people get to come and meet. They call it it's called Vedaji Darshan. I don't know how they come up with all this terminologies, but it was really funny. So they get to ask me a question, and it seemed like everybody wants to ask questions at the same time, and everyone had a million questions.
Wow, that's a good problem to have.
So it was fun. It was fun. It's in this beautiful place called Avery Point. It's on the coast of the Atlantic Ocean. It's a Yukon, a part of University of Connecticut campus. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful part of town.
Wow, sounds nice.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Really nice.
Thank you for sharing. I had a couple things before we start today. I got two corrections this week from Chaitanya Charan Prabhu that I need to clear up. The first one being, I think on the thread I said, this is going to be an interactive session. This is going to be an engaging session. Interactive. It'll be interactive, though we won't be pulling from the audience live. Though you can always tap in on the chat if you want to contribute or you have any questions or anything during the session. But that's one correction. The second correction is I started the class a couple days ago with a story. Well, not really a story, but the little tidbit that demoniac. We were talking about the nature of people, whether people are born inherently good or inherently bad. And I started off with a little tidbit of how in previous ages, demoniac and divine qualities were like on different planets. And then as the ages got more degraded, they became on the same planet and then the same body, so that we all have these divine and demonic qualities. And Chaitanya Charan Prabhu left me the nicest message afterwards. He's like, Radha, I just want you to know, that's technically, I've heard that a lot, and I even used to teach it, but it's actually not technically correct for these reasons, and I try to let you down easy. And I'm like, you totally should have corrected me on the show. And I was like, all right, I'm going to correct myself on the show. So I don't know if Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, you want to elaborate on kind of the nuances associated with that, but
Okay.
For the purposes of being philosophically correct, which is something we hold in very high esteem here, we're not just like sharing our ideas or opinions. We follow a very strict lineage where when we try to stay very adherent to the philosophy of that lineage.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, it is not a major point, but the key thing here is that the core point was still true, that the divine and demoniac tendencies are there within our hearts. And the two concerns with this point are that it is not in the past that people didn't have divine and demoniac tendencies in their hearts. It is not that in the past everybody was black or everybody was white. But these two exist within human existence all the time. The proportion of people who are more blurred, maybe but the muddle in the middle, maybe much more in today's times than it was in the past. And the other point was that when we consider the broad cosmology given in the broad Vedic text, it describes that there are different kinds of life forms. And the godly beings and the ungodly beings, the divine beings and demoniac beings, are two categories of beings. And they exist at different places in the universe. And so there's a whole unexplored, even unknown universe, unfathomed universe for us. And the key point is that this reduces this idea that demons now reside in the same heart. Demons and divine and demoniac. What it implies is that it's entirely metaphorical. There are no such thing as actual demons and divine beings. But there are demons and divine beings also. So those 2 points, the coexistence of them always in the human heart, and that they're not just metaphorical, they are also actual beings who exist. This small couple of points.
Thank you. Thank you for that correction. I so appreciate that. I like doing this with you guys because I feel like you always got my back in making sure that even whatever I say or is on par philosophically, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, should we get into our topic for today?
Yeah.
I was thinking we could do just a quick recap. We were going to kind of pick through this transgender issue a little bit more. We got cut short a couple, or maybe last week when we were going through it. And I think we got to the main points, but I think there's a lot more that we want to kind of discuss. I know I have a couple things that didn't quite sit right with me that I kind of want to bring up and dissect a little bit. I brought up I have the notes from the last session. Are they easy to pull up on your tablet too, or should I just share my screen?
Sure, I can do that. But if you want to share your screen,
Okay.
that's fine.
Yeah, if yours is handy, it would probably be better because then it's the same one if it's super handy for you.
So is this the transgender one, or is this which one?
Yeah, so this is a transgender one. So we talked about 3 main points in the transgender. We talked about acceptance, prominence, and transcendence.
Yeah.
And as it relates to the transgender issue. So we talked about acceptance in our lineage, in our path. We accept everyone. We show love and compassion to everybody. And I think that was a point that we all very much so agreed on. Yeah, there you go. Great. And if there's any more that you want to say about that, just briefly in a summary before we move on to prominence, and then we can maybe kind of pick this apart a little bit.
Okay. So I'd say that in some ways, where acceptance was not offered in the past, now acceptance is a greater challenge, and sometimes acceptance can become more assertive. So in that sense, that's perfect. That is something which is desirable, which is even essential. And here, acceptance also means that from the Bhagavad-gita's perspective, that we also have philosophical understanding of how or why a person may be like that. So that's that. So without that, it's more like a reluctant acceptance. But here, okay, we all have different kinds of karma baggage that we bring from our past. And that karma baggage determines the kind of body we have, the kind of relationship with the body that we have. So in one sense, it creates acceptance without, you could say, a dogmatic insistence. So yes, sometimes a person may be born in a very wealthy family, but they have a very difficult relationship with that family. Sometimes the person may be born in a poor family, but they have excellent relationship with that family. So like that, somebody may be born with a healthy body, but they may not have they may have a difficult relationship with their own body. Sometimes somebody may be born with a not so healthy body, but they have a more, they're able to accept this is where I am. So it's a acceptance which can be very objective, and it can help us to move ahead in our life. So yeah, that's
Wonderful.
what I would like to see.
Thank you. And then we can move on to prominence, your point on prominence and what you were conveying with that.
Vedaji wanted to say something. You wanted to say something, Vedaji?
Yeah. I wanted to share a quote about acceptance. Are you all ready?
I'm ready.
This was a teacher at VIHE, I forget his name. He beautifully, I loved it. Acceptance. When we don't accept an undesired event, it becomes anger. When we accept it, it becomes tolerance. When we don't accept uncertainty, it becomes fear. When we accept it, it becomes adventure. When we don't accept others' bad behavior towards us, it becomes hatred. When we accept it, it becomes forgiveness. When we don't accept others' success, it becomes jealousy. And when we accept it, it becomes inspiration. So this was my meditation on acceptance. So I just thought I'd share that with you. Okay,
Wow.
Amazing.
We'll get on prominence now.
No, that's beautiful. We could talk around that for a while, I feel.
Yeah, I think definitely.
Acceptance is a very broad topic, so definitely a lot can be discussed. But let us hear about prominence, and then we can go.
So, wait, those things on the left, the things that you were saying, basically when we don't accept things, what were all of the traits that it leads to? Can you just read all those negative traits that it leads to when we don't accept things?
I'll send it in the group. How's that?
Oh, that's great. In the chat.
I just like to go back to what you said, acceptance when it with others of others. What was it you said? Because that could be relevant to our discussion today. Acceptance of others when it leads to hate if it is not there. Is it?
When we accept or when we don't accept?
Yeah, both. When I'm talking more in terms of relationships, if you don't accept others, that leads to hate.
Yes, when we don't accept others' bad behavior towards us, it becomes hatred. When we accept it, it becomes forgiveness.
Interesting. So some people might consider this itself to be bad behavior, and there could be, it's not exactly, transgender is not a bad behavior, it's just a psychological, especially when somebody is born in a particular way. So I'd say when there's no acceptance, here in this case there is hatred, there can also be contempt, there can be loathing, which is similar to hatred, there can be disgust or whatever, there can be shaming, whereas on the other side, we can say acceptance of others, because this is not bad behavior, there has to be something stronger than forgiveness over here. There's more of acknowledgement, acceptance, and respect for everyone for their spirituality. So especially if somebody is behaving wrongly towards us, then hate and forgiveness are the dynamic. In our particular situation, it would be contempt versus respect, condemnation versus acknowledgement. So I'm trying to keep both the notes open in case we want to go back to the previous notes also. Condemnation versus acknowledgement or appreciation of the situation that person is in. Yeah.
One of the things, Prabhu, is that the causation of this whole issue, I think, is something that we haven't explored in our podcast.
Please go ahead. What you mean by causation?
This whole two opposite spectrums of people who are fighting for like the prominence that you mentioned, and then there are people who are just so heavily affected by the almost like being thrown it in their faces. Then it seems to me that there's a very big missing point in this whole issue, especially if we can try to understand why are people acting the way they are in the first place. How did we get here? So more of a spiritual reasoning for how did we get here, I think would help us to, a lot of people to
So when you're saying how did we
accept-
get here, are you talking about how the particular individual got in that particular condition, that situation? Because we discussed
Yes.
about the transmigration lag in the previous session.
Yes.
And are you talking about how
Go
okay,
ahead.
are you talking about how society got here in this
Society
polarized
got
state?
here. Yes, how the society got here.
Okay.
Because, when we look at, say, for example, someone is not feeling accepted at home, like we were discussing, even Radha Priti, she wanted to be acting boyish so that, she could get acceptance from her dad. Now that emotion of seeking acceptance from her dad could, if it was, a little bit more intensified, that emotion, then she could have a tendency to switch over to something else. So she could really, really feel accepted. So I think to understand that there is a deeper issue why people get into this quagmire, and the whole society is drowning in it, and everyone is trying to find a solution, is to first understand that there is a fundamental issue of, our spiritual selves not being accepted for who we are.
Wow, that's deep. So you're saying, like, if we don't accept each other on so many different levels, and then we end up here in a
Yes.
place where either side can really still accept each other, and now we're just fighting over it.
And we talk about compete and compare, but on this we are fundamentally shaken to our core as to who we are. Why aren't we being accepted for who I am? I'm a girl and I'm a boy. I am this, I'm that. Why are my parents? Why isn't the society? Why isn't family just giving me that acknowledgement? And that creates this need to feel accepted in society and find a belonging, and therefore we get onto a path that could be quite drastic, changing our complete physiology.
Right, now Chaitanya Charan Prabhu did speak about the spectrum of people, like where some people, it's he talked about the lag. What did you call that?
Transmigration lag.
Transmigration lag.
Yeah.
So some people, it's like
Sure.
a very real thing in their bodies. It's something that would be very difficult to change, or it may never change. But he talked about the spectrum of where some people, maybe they're just going through a difficult time, like I was, and maybe they're just confused about their identity, and
It could be an identity lag. How is an identity lag or acceptance lag? Why not all of those?
Yeah, so there's that different spectrum. So what you're saying is sometimes people maybe don't feel accepted for other reasons, and if this option is so available to them, so readily and easily, they may take it and they may regret it down the road, or it may bring more trouble to them in other ways. That if we as a society could cultivate a higher level of acceptance, generally speaking, in just who we are and who our family members are and who our children are, and then this may not have to go that far. And that could make a lot of people's lives easier.
Yeah, there's acceptance on various levels.
Yeah, just to explore your point a little bit. So I use the word transmigration lag because generally we focus on the cause of the lag, not the features of the lag. Like jet lag, we don't say time lag, clock lag, sleep lag, food lag. So all those happen. We don't want to sleep at a particular time where the body's sleeping. So those are there. But what caused it is jet travel. And then if people travel by ship, they won't have that lag. So that's why the word jet lag. Hence the mechanism that causes the lag, not the symptoms of the lag. That's the focus. So transmigration lag leads to, yes, it could lead to confusion about gender identity. It could confusion about one's relationship with one's body. It could relate to one's sexual orientation. It could also relate to one's relationships with others. So some people, they just don't feel at home in their family. Some children especially, at least in the early stages of their life, they don't feel at home in their particular relationships in this life. So I have in my book on reincarnation the story of a Muslim to Hindu reincarnation, where this Hindu family was purely vegetarian, and this boy, right from his early childhood, loved to eat meat. And his parents just couldn't understand where did he get that taste from. So that's why the word transmigration lag. Now, second point is that with respect to,
but that's one factor, though. What about karma playing a role in that?
Well, karma plays a role in everything.
Yes.
Like jet lag also, everybody travels, but not everybody experiences jet lag to the same degree. For some people, it lasts maybe a day or two. For some people, it doesn't last much at all. For some people, it lasts for weeks. So that is the additional factor that depends on individual body nature, individual susceptibility of how influenceable one is to one's climate and weather. So yes, karma. That also. So in jet lag also, karma is involved. Karma is involved everywhere. So that is true. Now going back to your other point of we not being spiritually accepted for who we are. Well, see, I'm not sure whether that's the cause of the current rise in the phenomena of transgender, because that people were not aware of their spiritual essence is something which has been there throughout human history. That maybe most people in the pre-scientific age, or pre-scientific, I would say, in the pre-industrial revolution or the what is called scientific revolution times, most people had an acceptance that there is another world, and that world is the ultimate destination where we should be aiming to go. But beyond that, I don't see that a lot of people were very consciously aware that I'm a spiritual peak across the world. So I'm not sure that people not being accepted spiritually was the cause of a greater number of people identifying as transgender now. Or did I not understand your point properly?
I think you did, but what I would like to elaborate on this acceptance. Everybody in this world, inherently, the moment we're born, we're seeking some sort of acceptance. We want our parents.
Okay, so when you are using the word spiritually, that does not necessarily mean in the terms of understanding ourselves as souls. You're saying spiritually means It's a more non-literal. We should be accepted at the level of emotion, at the level of identity. Like our spirit gets deflated when we are not accepted for who we are. So they're using it in that sense.
Yeah, but there's
Yeah,
also
okay.
a conflict between, at a young age, between the spirit and the body.
That is there all the time.
So it's jumbled up, but they just want to be accepted for who I am.
Yeah, for example, I might be an introvert, and if I live in a group, so a social circle of all extroverts, I might be considered as strange or even repressed or whatever else. So if somebody is in a place where everybody loves a particular game, baseball, and that person has no interest in baseball, maybe that person has interest in science, that person would be labeled as a nerd and criticized. But
Yeah,
maybe
we live
another
in a
place,
world that's very loud nowadays, though, right?
what?
I think like even if unless you're born like a saint, even if you're born and you have this upbringing where you're taught about what you are as a spirit soul, and even if you study, I mean, I feel like I chant and study all the time. You still have an inherent need to be accepted by people around you, right? Until, I mean, I hope one day I come to the point where like I don't care at all, and I'm 100% spirit soul, and but like I also recognize that I'm not there yet, and maybe never will be. So in the meantime, in order to have like a healthy existence, you have to feel some level of acceptance by the people around you, right? Even if you do understand that you're a spirit soul, if you haven't fully realized it yet, which most of us haven't, right? Or we wouldn't care at all. We wouldn't have a need to be accepted by anybody. We would just be, right?
See,
Yes, true.
yeah, and I also feel, a lot of the gangs in the world have those kids, they're just simply seeking acceptance, someone to accept us for who we are. And they're ready to do whatever it takes. And the gang rituals are quite heavy, simply because they're looking for acceptance for who they are. And who they are is an identity that's sometimes it's very confused for them. But whatever it may be, they're still seeking that acceptance. And when they don't get it, someone accepts them, then, they're in that clique. And sometimes it's very dangerous. So this is why I think acceptance has a very deep significance to this whole transgender issue, because I think that the prominence only comes, not only, one of the reasons prominent comes is because there is lack of acceptance. Now, I don't mean that accepting means we have to flaunt them all over our TV screens. That's a little different.
Yeah, so maybe we should review what prominence means a little bit, because we referred to it a couple times, and maybe some people haven't seen that episode. So can we review what CC was talking about
Yeah.
when he went through that topic?
Yeah. So what I was saying is that prominence, let me elaborate that. I have also often talked about it. So if we consider, say, this is the center of this society, and then people who are transgender were at one time, say, pushed out of society. They were so demeaned that they had to hide, and they had to stay outside the society, outside the domain of society, and by social, that I mean social acceptance. Now, we could say they have come to the level where there is significant social acceptance is there. So this was the past. Then this was, you could say, almost the way times are changing, this was the recent past. Now we could say, sorry, what happened? This was the recent past. Anyway, this was the recent past, and now to some extent what is happening is the transgender issue has come to prominence So this right, that this is considered to be the most important thing. That this, in the sense that this right of a person to be transgender is not only is to be asserted and protected, which is fair enough, but beyond that, it is also stated that this is what should be taught to children. This is what should be uh, enabled for children if a child wants to change. Now, the problem with this prominence is that it can become like a quick fix. Because you're saying that, okay, I don't feel that I'm the right body. So what do? I think the solution is change my gender. Now, that's where I was making this point that if you consider discomfort with body, that everybody has that. For some people, it will be slight. For some people, it will be severe. Severe means everybody, as I said, we feel a little too short, a little too tall. So the difference is a matter of degree. It's not category. So it's not that a transgender are a completely different phenomena for which there is no parallel and for which society itself needs to be completely restructured. Well, restructuring society means what? The child wants to change the gender. Traditionally, parents have responsibility for the child, especially when the child is small. It is parents who take the decision. The child says, I want to take drugs. Well, the parents, the drug peddlers cannot sell to minors. Those peddling adult entertainment cannot. They have to have some warnings to not let children come in. So there is a certain level of consent required. There are even movies which cannot be seen without parental consent or with parental accompaniment or something like that for children. So here children are being encouraged to change their entire gender and irreversible changes of the body. And there are very dubious benefits of this. The British Journal of Medicine, it actually combined, it did almost some 31 systematic studies, at the end of which they said there is great uncertainty about, so 61 systematic studies they conducted, and there is a great uncertainty about the effects of puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and surgeries in young people. So this is where this is something, and this given prominence that can become a quick fix. And instead of dealing with deeper issues with the children, like Veda was saying that sometimes people may have certain problems that have to be addressed, but instead of addressing those problems, all that is done is those kids are told that just change the gender. So that was where things can become harmful. When this becomes the right that supersedes all other rights, that's where things start going wrong.
This mindset's kind of in line with like the way, and I want to be careful not to speak in absolutes here, because some people it's a very real thing and it really helps them greatly. But some, like children who, CC, you made the point last time that they can't even drive yet. They can't even watch all movies yet. It's recognized that they're not capable of making that level of decisions. They're presented with this option, and it's in line with the way that I'm gonna pick on my husband again. Like as soon as he feels anything in his body that's off, he's like, I want to go to the doctor. Oh, I want to take a pill. And I always give him a hard time. You should look at your sleep habits. You should look at your eating habits. If you're feeling these things all the time, it's like, that's not a real solution. It's just like a Band-Aid to cover up a symptom that you're experiencing. But if you should really kind of look at your lifestyle, and if you're experiencing these things all the time, then maybe make a change at like a deeper level. And sometimes it feels like, since we're in this culture of this quick sense gratification or fix, that's our expectation. And to your point, sometimes if we're a child and we're experiencing discomfort in our identity, maybe sitting with it a little bit and waiting it out before making a life-changing decision, or a decision that could have so many intense repercussions down the road, could be more beneficial to the child. But I think on the other side, Vedas are saying, if you're able to have a conversation with your parents and your parents accept where you are, then it could also even maybe alleviate some of that resistance that they're feeling inside.
It's interesting you bring up that point. A lot of the kids, when we're told not to do something, the likelihood of us doing it is very high. Because no one wants to be told what to do. And so this psychology of teenagers, the way they work, it's very interesting. And so I think it's such an important principle to, whenever someone is having an issue, any kind of crisis, that we practice the principles of bhakti, of compassion, guhya makiti prichiti, to actually hear them out. Everything they have to say, we hear them out, and we simply inquire from them, where is this, thoughts, where is this ideas coming from, and thereby helping them to see that the pattern of thought that they have is somewhat vetted through this relationship of a friendly dialogue. And I think that doesn't happen. And it doesn't happen in friend circles. It doesn't happen in family circles sometimes. And as a result, there is a heavier consequence that sometimes the families have major disagreements, such as this whole transgender issues. So I've been thinking a lot about this principle of, one of the Goswamis, one of the saints in Vrindavan, he really, really emphasizes this 6 loving exchanges. And one of them is really important to reveal what is in one's mind, one's struggles. And that is not given an opportunity, that is not given the prominence. And I think that is where the prominence, if that is given prominence, then what we are seeing as prominent in the world today, I don't think that may be the case.
Good point. Let's say, what do we give prominence to? At one level, it's not necessarily true that no one likes to be told what to not do. No one likes to be told what to not do without any explanation for not doing it. If I'm sick and a doctor tells me, don't take this medicine if you are going for a drive. Why? Because this medicine will make you sleepy. Oh, okay. That's a reasonable reason. And if the doctor says, no, who am I to tell you? I can't tell you. No, then that person may feel sleepy and may have an accident. Why didn't you tell me at that time? So, in one sense, it is the responsibility at one level. Teenage is a rebellious phase, no doubt about it. But at the same time, setting boundaries is a very important part of guiding others. So doctor has to say, if you're going to do a kidney transplant, then for this much period after you do the kidney transplant, you have to take this particular medicine every day. Otherwise, the body itself will reject the kidney, and all that we have done will go to waste. So this is something you cannot forget to take this medicine. So I'm giving a medical example, but it could apply in other areas also. So the problem is that it's what is given prominence. If what is given prominence is at one extreme of the pendulum, this is what you should never do. This cannot be accepted. Okay, why can it not be accepted? It is wrong. It is unnatural. Okay, what do you mean by unnatural? Why? This is the way I was born. So is it not natural? Who are you to say it is unnatural? So when there is no explanation given, and then there is a direction or instruction given, then that's the time when there's a great resentment. So if the rational explanation is given, so that actually brings to the same point which you were making later, that guhyam akhyati puchyati, that if okay, what are your concerns? When you say you want to do this, what is actually going on in your life? Yeah, this is one solution you are thinking, but let's understand what is the problem. So
can we say rational and loving? Because I feel like both are necessary. Like, just if your parents are like, no, this isn't because X, Y, and Z. It's like the kid needs to feel like the parent really, really cares about them and isn't just like attached to some image of them and isn't trying to like force them into because the parent is attached. And it's like such an important thing that I feel like is often not felt in relationships, and what makes them so difficult, even not just parental, but even like husband-wife relationships. Like, it's so important to feel that even if it's a logical, rational reason, you have to feel love behind it, or it's like, no way. Bye-bye. Right?
True. Agreed. So
go ahead.
No, so the affection love or affection is expressed by both, in one sense, disciplining, but also by extending. So disciplining is you don't go there, but extending is I will go there. I'll go there, not means where I'm telling you not to go, but for your sake, I'm ready to go where I would not normally do. No go. So yeah, I don't like this, but for your sake, I'm ready to extend this. I'm ready to do this. So a child wants to purchase a toy, the parents say, okay, yeah, we'll purchase it. But a child wants to say smoke? No, of course not. So child needs to feel loud. So that's why if there is an instruction given, and then how do we know the person feels loud? Well, the idea of love languages, and the idea that when that person values something, and then that is given to that person, that is done for that person. So there may be many things that person may value, and some of those things, it may not be possible to give them. But that doesn't mean nothing or none of the things that the person wants can be given to them. So when none of those things are given, then it becomes a serious problem. So if we go towards overall, considering what a person is affectionate about, what a person cares for, okay. So in the range of the things the person cares for, so there could be some things that they care for which are, okay, let's say if you consider a big circle, within that circle, some things that they value, we do for them. Something that we value, we are not able to do for them. Or we say that you should not do for us. That's fair enough. But if everything that they say we don't do, then that becomes a problem. So that is where I think things have to be careful, one has to be careful about these things. We consider what they care for, what they care about. Now, some things may be good for them, some things may not be so good for them. Some things may be neutral. So there are some areas where there's extending. Yes, I'll do this for you. But in some areas, there might be sort of restraining. No, you cannot do this. So I think love has to involve both those things. So if there's only restraining and no extending, then it can seem very, very restrictive.
Right, or restraining for the wrong reasons or extending for the wrong reasons. After a certain amount of time in a relationship with the person, you can feel that, and then you develop distrust around the whole cycle. Like, okay, I don't. You're holding me back from this. Is it because you're trying to protect me, or because you have a certain attachment of the way I'm supposed to look or be? And after so much of that, then it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to listen to anything you say. So then it's dysfunctional.
Yeah.
But I also think to the degree we extend, only to that degree will they restrain. because extending means you're giving them affection with intelligence and reason, right? Then they will restrain themselves. Why would they restrain? So there has to be, restraining takes more effort. So that means they're having to find with themselves and their mind and their senses and society. So restraining is going to take a lot from them. And I feel very strongly that extending, I mean, they're equally important, but to the degree of that we extend, to that degree they will restrain.
Agreed fully. So we should, so the prominence rather than, so what we said is acceptance needs to be offered to help the person be accepted where they are, and prominence be given. If some, rather than don't do this, the prominence is given over for the reason, for the boundaries, for the affection with which that restraining is being done, and then there'll not be that much of a problem. Otherwise, the problem will become escalated.
Right. Yeah, I liked the way you explained prominence this time a lot. It made more sense to me than the first time you explained it. I felt a little bit like, oh, well, they're not being heard. And it's important that people feel heard. I didn't want that point to be missed. But it's also important that other people, and especially children, are protected, and having a society where it seems almost, it's like an option for a child. Like, what are you going to wear today? It seems like there could be a lot of hurt associated with that, in either immediate or down the line, that we can maybe avoid if we practice this acceptance much early on in our relationships. It's difficult stuff, though. This isn't easy. This is really difficult stuff.
It's 10 o'clock. Should we do a little summarize, Chaitanya Prabhu?
Sure. So we discussed broadly two points today. One was acceptance. So we started by discussing about how, when we function in life, the issue of transgender, that acceptance can be at multiple levels, and it's not just when people want to be accepted as transgender. That is a specific problem, but the much more universal problem is that different people in different situations may not be accepted for who they are. It may not be, somebody may be of a particular nature, but they may not be accepted. So acceptance, it is required at various levels of beings. Various levels is needed, and then that generally happens through. We look at the causation of this in terms of, at one level, the Transmigration Lab will elaborate a little bit how that is, in one sense, a universal phenomena. That there is some level of disconnect. That's why, because of Transmigration Lab is there, it's a difference of degree, not category. Some people may have a greater sense of more difficult relationship with their body, greater difficulty with their body or its orientation, but others may not have. And then lastly, we discussed about prominence. So prominence, to, instead of saying my right, it's my right to be, and it's not only my right, it is the supreme right. So this is what is to be given most importance. That can lead to harm to children, but instead we focus on prominent. It's the loving rationale, okay, loving rationale for boundaries. So rather than simply insisting, don't do this, we have, okay, this is what is constructive, this is what is harmful, and how do we deal with this? So any concluding comments?
I love it.
Yeah,
Thanks.
This is great. Thank you. Before we end here, I want to make the announcement one more time while we're being recorded that we're going to start next Tuesday. What is that, the 27th, I think? 7:30 a.m. Eastern time. We'll do Tuesdays, Thursdays, 7:30 a.m. Eastern time. Going forward, that'll be our schedule. So we won't be switching around all the time. And so please join us live. And if you're listening to this recording, you can get on our WhatsApp group, our WhatsApp thread, where we send out updates if there are any. Hopefully it won't happen very often going forward, but yeah, you can get the Zoom link and you can join us live for our morning satsang Tuesday, Thursday.
Please
Thank you.
Feel free to leave your questions and doubts and inquiries and in the WhatsApp group as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun place for us all to connect. So
thank you all very much. Namaste.
thank you.